Hello and happy holidays to all of my NFL and fantasy football fans. Thank you for tuning in to the Final Wrap, your official NFL and fantasy football show right here on the Derek Shapiro Show, where we recap all of your NFL and fantasy football action from each week around the NFL. As always, I am your host, the NFLExporter. Before we get into another outstanding show, let's make sure you know how to connect with me on my social networks, which is the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with the latest news and updates. You want to make sure to follow me on Twitter at NFLExporter. Also, send a friend request to me over on Facebook.com/NFLExporter. And for behind the scenes footage and exclusive interviews, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Just go to YouTube.com, click on channels, and in the search engine, put NFLExporter. The spelling for NFLExporter for Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube is NFLExporter. Also, if you'd like to hit me up using email, the email address is NFLExporter@yahoo.com. Just leave your name, your city and state, your favorite football team, and whatever it is you'd like for me to talk about on the show. Put it in the email. I'll make sure to include it in one of my weekly segments. We are going to get things rolling today, like we always do, taking a look at the top 10 fantasy football players at each respective position. And with the NFL season now being in week 16, for many people, this was the championship round. For others, a semifinal matchup, a chance to get to the finals, or the first of a 2-week matchup in the finals. So there was certainly a lot on the line this week. Taking a look at our top 10 performers at the quarterback position. Certainly a lot of names on this list who have not been up here in a very long time. Certainly a lot of players who are not currently ranked in the top 10 at the fantasy football position for the 2014 year as a whole. Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks, another outstanding day, had 35 huge points. This is standard format, so in your respective league, his point total could be even higher, but Wilson was spectacular, throwing for 2 touchdowns, running for 88 yards on the ground, rushing for another touchdown. The guy has just been absolutely amazing this year. Great job by Russell Wilson. If you had him at your quarterback position really all year long, certainly has paid some huge dividends. Number 2, Ryan Tannehill of the Miami Dolphins had 4 TD passes that helped him to 29 points. Eli Manning had a perfect quarterback rating as he shredded apart the St. Louis Rams defense in St. Louis. That was a huge surprise. Manning threw 3 TD passes, only missed on 7 passes, 390 yards, just really had an outstanding day. That was good for 27 points. Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers had a very poor day passing the football, only 114 yards and a touchdown pass, but was able to rush for over 100 yards on the ground, including a 90-yard TD run that helped propel him to 27 points. Tony Romo continues to get the job done for the Dallas Cowboys, had 218 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was good for 26 points. Phillip Rivers got off to a rough start as the San Diego Chargers were down 21 points at halftime, but Rivers kept firing away, ended the day with 355 passing yards, 4 TDs, 3 interceptions. That was good for 24 points. Cam Newton of the Carolina Panthers had a passing touchdown as well as an interception, but he was able to run for 63 yards and get a touchdown rushing. That helped him to 22 points. Kyle Orton of the Buffalo Bills, over 300 yards passing, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. That was good for 21 points. Mark Sanchez of the Philadelphia Eagles had 374 passing yards, 2 TDs, an interception. That helped him to 20 points. Sean Hill of the St. Louis Rams, 210 passing yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. That was good for 17 points. And then Minnesota Vikings rookie Teddy Bridgewater did much better as anticipated against the Miami Dolphins defense, had 259 passing yards, 2 TDs, and an interception. When we take a look at our duds this week, these are our quarterbacks who did not perform at a high level as we had anticipated they would do. It got started with Andrew Luck. He came into this week as the leader in overall points in fantasy football. The guy flat out laid a goose egg, did not have a single point, only threw for 109 yards, 2 interceptions, just a game I'm quite sure Luck would like to forget about. Matt Stafford of the Detroit Lions. This guy has been a huge disappointment the last 2 weeks. Only 1 TD pass. Last week playing at home against Minnesota. This week playing that poor Bears defense on the road. Did not have a single TD pass. Only 5 points for him. Joe Flacco continues to be one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks in the NFL. 3 interceptions. He only had 9 points. Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints. I'm not quite sure if there's a bigger disappointment in fantasy football at the quarterback position than Drew Brees this year. Another subpar game, 310 yards passing, a touchdown, lost 2 fumbles, also had 2 interceptions, and one of them very, very costly. Really put the nail in the coffin for the Saints' hopes this year. He only had 10 points. Tom Brady played the Jets' weak defense, but struggled mightily. Only had 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Actually, Geno Smith, the quarterback for the New York Jets, had a better game than Tom Brady. I think that should let you know how bad Brady played. He only had 10 points. Ben Roethlisberger, 220 yards, only 1 touchdown passing. That was only good for 12 points. And although Aaron Rodgers did have 318 passing yards, only had 1 TD pass, that was only good for 14 points. If you had those fantasy football quarterbacks in certainly Andrew Luck, Matthew Stafford, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, those are all players that you were counting on this week to score big points for you. Those guys did not come through. A lot of those guys were on the list last week, so I'm quite sure there are some fantasy football owners out there, myself included. I have Matthew Stafford. He may potentially end up costing me a championship, not only in 1 but 2 leagues. I had him in starting this week on the road at Chicago, a defense that had been getting torched really throughout the course of the season. I don't know if it because it was the last game at Soldier Field. I don't know what it is, but Matthew Stafford, I am totally done with him. Moving over to the running back position, Marshawn Lynch of the Seattle Seahawks had a 79-yard beast mode TD run to help propel him to the top of the ladder with 23 points. Also scored on another short touchdown. San Francisco 49ers fed Frank Gore properly. It helped Gore to get 158 yards, his biggest output of the season, including a 52-yard TD scamper. That was good for 21 points. A guy that I really missed out on this week, not taking into consideration he was getting the full workload for the Minnesota Vikings. I didn't even think Minnesota really had a chance in that game, but goes to show, I guess, what I know when it comes to some things. Asiata had 2 TDs, 59 yards on the ground, also had 18 yards receiving. That was good for 20 points. Lamar Miller of the Miami Dolphins had a very solid game, 92 rushing yards, had some yards receiving, a touchdown that helped him to 20 points. Jonathan Stewart of the Carolina Panthers continues to do his thing without D'Angelo Williams in, 122 rushing yards, a receiving TD. That was good for 18 points. Shady McCoy of the Philadelphia Eagles, 88 rushing yards, had a touchdown, also a couple yards receiving. That helped him to 16 points. And then you had Reggie Bush of the Detroit Lions, Matt Forte of the Chicago Bears, Arian Foster of the Houston Texans, and Eddie Lacy of the Green Bay Packers. All of those guys chipped in this week with 15 big points. Now looking at your duds, your disappointing players at the running back position. Justin Forsett, only 2 points, playing that tough Houston Texans defense. J.J. Watt continues to be a big problem for offensive lines to block. Jamal Charles has really let his owners down the last 2 weeks. He only had 4 points against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was a very favorable matchup for him. Isaiah Crowell continues to run the football. Only had 5 points. And then Darren Sproles, thought he'd be a little bit more a part of the Philadelphia game plan this week. He only had 6 points. If you had any of those running backs in, especially any combination of those running backs, probably did not have a good week scoring points in fantasy football. Now taking a look at the wide receiver position, what else can we say about the ODB? Odell Beckham Jr. just continues to be a monster out there. Another 8 catches, 148 yards this week, an 80-yard TD catch to really just blow his numbers out the water. He scored 2 more times this week. Now has 26. That was good for 26 points, I should say. Ruben Randall, the other wide receiver for the New York Giants, had 132 yards, a touchdown in this one. I guess that goes to show you how well Eli Manning played this week when the top two wide receivers in fantasy football are from the New York Giants this week. Coming next, we've got quite a few guys at 17 points. Jordy Nelson for the Green Bay Packers. We all knew that he was going to rebound after dropping a touchdown last week at Buffalo. Mike Wallace did not put up a ton of yards, but had 2 more TD catches for the Miami Dolphins. Riley Cooper was the flavor of the week this week for Mark Sanchez and the Eagles. He had 2 TD receptions. Torrey Smith, another guy, 50 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns for the Baltimore Ravens. Terrence Williams, part of that explosion, 42 points for the Dallas Cowboys, 52 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Next, you had Eddie Royal of the San Diego Chargers, 96 receiving yards and a touchdown against San Francisco on Saturday. And rounding out our top 10, Dez Bryant of the Dallas Cowboys continues to be a monster, 14 receiving touchdowns on the year. He had 13 points. You have Randall Cobb of the Green Bay Packers, continues to put up the huge numbers, 11 catches, 131 yards. That was good for 13 points. Alshon Jeffrey of the Chicago Bears, 72 receiving yards, a touchdown. That was good for 13. Rookie Sammy Watkins able to get back on the map, 70 receiving yards and a nice touchdown catch in that loss against the Raiders. That was good for 13 points. A guy who's making the list for the very first time this year. We're talking about Bruce Ellington. I apologize for the San Francisco 49ers. Talented young rookie, had a rushing touchdown as well as a receiving touchdown. That helped him on his way to 13 points as well. Now taking a look at your wide receivers, and this always seems to be a very lengthy list on a week in and week out basis. If you had any of these wide receivers in, certainly didn't do your fantasy football team any justice this week. DeAndre Hopkins of the Houston Texans, he only had 3 points along with the Cardinals receiver Larry Fitzgerald. Never does well against the Seattle Seahawks. A couple rookies out there, Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin, both of those guys only 4 points. Josh Gordon for the Browns continues to struggle with that quarterback carousel out in Cleveland. He only had 4 points. Dwayne Bowe, we usually find his name on this list week in and week out. Despite Alex Smith throwing for over 300 yards, Bowe only 50 of those. Roddy White had a key drop in that game that probably would have pushed his numbers up towards 80 yards. He only had 5 points. Kenny Stills of the New Orleans Saints, he only had 6. You have Jeremy Maclin of the Philadelphia Eagles. Very favorable matchup. Was only able to get 60 out of the 374 yards that Mark Sanchez threw for. You have Golden Tate of the Detroit Lions. Was unable to capitalize on his double-digit targets. Only had 6 points. Brandon LaFell got handcuffed to Tom Brady's tough day at the office, only 6 points. And then you have Andre Johnson, Vincent Jackson, a couple veteran receivers slowing down a tad bit. Certainly have been a part of this disappointment list for the majority of the year. Both of those guys only 6 points as well. Now we take a look at our tight end position. How about Luke Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks? I think he'll be the #1 guy coming in next year for Seattle at the tight end position. 139 yards, including a 80-yard TD catch as Seattle thumped the Arizona Cardinals 35-6. That was good for 25 points for Wilson. Antonio Gates continues to get the job done despite his age. Phillip Rivers' favorite target, especially in the red zone, had 2 more TD catches. That was good for 21 points. How about Jason Witten? 90 yards on 7 catches, had a touchdown as the Cowboys blew out the Colts. That was good for 15. Jordan Cameron, second time this year, has done nothing all year but decided to rear his head up for a week. 81-yard TD catch. That was good for 14 points. You have Charles Clay, the Miami Dolphins. Somebody found him laying underneath a rock this past week. He decided to pop in this week to get over 100 yards receiving. Zach Ertz, 11 catches, 115 yards. Mark Sanchez utilized him a lot underneath in their loss against the Washington Redskins. Jeff Cumberland had a short touchdown to help him get 10 points for the Jets. Then we had 4 guys with 9 points. Scott Chandler of the Buffalo Bills, Rob Gronkowski of the New England Patriots, Lance Kendricks of the St. Louis Rams, and Deion Sims for the goodness, you have to forgive me. I don't even know what team this guy plays for. Just don't even know who he is. The same for this, excuse the pronunciation, Federates. maybe for, again, I have no idea. If you look at Deion Sims and Federer, only time this year these guys have been on the list, probably backup tight ends who just happen to pop open in the goal line situation or something like that. Looking at your tight ends who were huge disappointments this week, you got Tim Wright for the New England Patriots. You figure with Julian Edelman being out, certainly that might have helped him get some more targets. Nonetheless, he only had 1 point. Greg Olsen for the Carolina Panthers only had 2. Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs, surprised about that. The way, again, Alex Smith up over 300 yards. Kelce only 3 points. Very shocked about that. Kobe Fleener, horrible game for the Indianapolis Colts, along with fellow tight end Dwayne Allen. Fleener with only 3 points. Allen, not a single point. Larry Donald, huge disappointment. Eli Manning deciding to exploit the wide receiver matchup. As we mentioned, 2 Giants sitting atop the wide receiver food chain this week. Donald only 4 points. And then Delaney Walker certainly has cooled down after his hot start this season. Only 5 points. Moving over to our defense and special teams, you had the Atlanta Falcons. I tell you, this Falcons defense has certainly found itself in the top 10 defenses at the most unlikely at times, going out to New Orleans. Big game, forcing 4 turnovers, getting a touchdown to end that game. Atlanta's defense special teams had 20 points. Green Bay Packers dominated Josh McCown, that low-budget offense out in Tampa Bay. That was good for 16 points. You have the Dallas Cowboys and Houston Texans both pumping in 13. Seattle Seahawks defense, very dominant as we anticipated, out against third-stringer Ryan Lindley and the Arizona Cardinals. They chipped in 12. A couple unlikely defenses up here. The Chicago Bears and Pittsburgh Steelers, both of those units very suspect, inconsistent all year. Both those guys at home games had 11 points. Carolina Panthers held the Cleveland Browns in check to the tune of 10. Surprisingly, the New York Jets defense against Tom Brady and that offense were able to get 9 points. And then you had the San Diego Chargers as well as the San Francisco 49ers, both of those defenses with 8. We have a long list of defenses that disappointed this week, starting with the Arizona Cardinals, -9. St. Louis Rams, -6. The New Orleans Saints, I don't think it's any surprise they're on this list yet again, -4. Minnesota Vikings, -2. Indianapolis Colts, -1. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 0. I think your biggest disappointments are the Buffalo Bills. After what they did to Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers in consecutive weeks, how do you go out and let rookie Derek Carr eat you up for 214, 2 touchdowns, not a single interception? You get ran over by Latavius Murray on the ground. Very shocking there. Baltimore playing against a quarterback who's coming in from another team off the practice squad. Really not getting any help from their offense. They only had 2 points. Kansas City Chiefs defense, without question, one of the biggest disappointment this year, only 3 points. New England's defense, only 5 against Geno Smith. Are you kidding me? Miami Dolphins defense, if it wasn't for a block punt that ended up being a safety, they would have had around 3 points. And then the Detroit Lions, you figured they would have put the clamps down on Jimmy Clausen. Just a very disappointing game for Detroit's defense, only 7 points. Last but not least, we take a look at the kicker position. You have Randy Bullock out for the Houston Texans with 19 points. Sebastian Janikowski with 15. You have Matt Bryant. He was certainly a good candidate this week. He had 15 points. Josh Brown of the New York Giants, 14. Carlos Santos for the Kansas City Chiefs with 13. Greg Zuerlein had 11. Nick Novak for the Chargers with 9, along with Nick Folk out in the Jets. Ryan Suckup for the Tennessee Titans. Kai Forbath for the Washington Redskins, and Blair Walsh for the Minnesota Vikings. All of those kickers pumped in 9 points this week. Looking at our disappointments for the second week in a row, I'm very shocked about this. You have Justin Tuck of the Baltimore Ravens, just 1 point. Adam Vinatieri of the Colts, just 1 point. Stephen Hauschka of the Seattle Seahawks missed a couple 50-yarders as well as a 40-yarder, only 2 points. Shane Graham from the New Orleans Saints, probably my biggest disappointment of the year. I know he's handcuffed to that horrible Saints team, but only 2 points. Cody Parkey missed 2 key field goals that potentially could have given the Philadelphia Eagles a win. They are pretty much done now. He only had 4 points. Caleb Sturgis for the Miami Dolphins thought this would be a field goal orientated game, with him only 4 points. Graham Gano of the Carolina Panthers, only 4. Dan Bailey and Stephen Gostkowski. Bailey for the Cowboys, Gostkowski for the New England Patriots, 2 of the more high-powered offenses in the NFL. Both of those guys only 5 points. Huge disappointments. And so, as you can see, there were certainly a lot of household names or defenses players, kickers, things of that nature that you certainly were dependent on to have great weeks in fantasy football, just not able to come through. On the other hand, if you were able to have those studs, primarily Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, ODB, Luke Wilson, Atlanta's defense, as well as Randy Bullock at kicker, those were your top scorers without question. You were able to walk away with a victory this week. That is going to wrap up our first segment. When we return, we'll start recapping our Week 16 games from around the NFL. This is the final wrap on the Derek Shapiro Show with the NFL Exporter. All right, everyone. Thank you for returning to the final wrap live on the Derek Shapiro Show. This is the place where we recap all of your NFL and fantasy football action from around the NFL each and every week. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at NFLExporter or send me a friend request over on Facebook.com/NFL Exporter. The spelling for both of those, once again, is NFLExporter. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what happened around Week 16 in the NFL. Things got started on Thursday Night Football. We had the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Tennessee Titans 21-13. In this ball game, not a lot to talk about. The Jaguars improved to 3-12. Tennessee dropped to 2-13. Neither one of these teams had any shot whatsoever at making the playoffs. Not a lot, again, to talk about in this ball game. You had Charlie Whitehurst, the backup quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, though, for 287 yards and a touchdown. You had Blake Bortles, the quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, have 13 completions for 115 yards. Tennessee Titans, and this was pretty much the difference in the ball game. It was Tennessee rushing the football 28 times for 95 yards. Meanwhile, Jacksonville had 25 rushing attempts for 177 yards and 2 TDs, and that really ended up being the difference in the ball game. Jacksonville's ability to run the football. Neither one of these teams turned the football over, and so this was a game not too many people had interest in outside of Jacksonville, and Tennessee fans had an opportunity to see their teams on prime time in Thursday Night Football, but the Jaguars were able to get their third victory of the season, so congratulations to them. Next, we've seen the Washington Redskins knock off the Philadelphia Eagles 27-24. Huge win there for the Washington Redskins. That was a franchise that certainly has been stuck in mud. A lot of turmoil surrounding that team all year long, but that win pretty much knocked the Philadelphia Eagles out of playoff contention. The Eagles need to win their last game and get tons of help from other teams ahead of them. So I think they're pretty much done. This game got played on Saturday. And so what you pretty much seen happen, and what really ended up hurting Philadelphia, was not covering their bases. 2 turnovers, both of those by Mark Sanchez. He lost a fumble, also threw an interception, and kicker Cody Parker missed 2 field goals. You look at Washington winning this game by 3 points. Those 2 missed field goals, key by Parker. If he knocks those in, probably changes the complexion on how that game was played. Also would have given Philadelphia the win. This was a tough division road game. If you look at it, Mark Sanchez, we know, very inconsistent throughout the course of the season. He did pass for 374 yards, 2 TDs. Zach Ertz was his favorite target at tight end, 11 catches, 115 yards. He found Riley Cooper for 2 touchdowns in that game. LaShawn McCoy had a pretty effective game on the ground, 22 rushing attempts, 88 yards and a touchdown. But ultimately, it was those mistakes that came back to haunt the Philadelphia Eagles. If you look at the stat sheet, Philadelphia outgained Washington by 190 yards as far as yardage was concerned. They had 13 more first downs than the Washington Redskins. Philadelphia converted 9 out of 16 third downs compared to only 2 out of 9 third down conversions by Washington. But again, the fundamentals, those missed field goals, those 2 turnovers, and then you're looking at a Philadelphia Eagles team very undisciplined, 13 penalties for 102 yards. That is how you lose a road game. For Washington, it really wasn't anything impressive. RG3, 220 passing yards, did have an interception, but it was the Washington Redskins being able to hang around, force those turnovers, have those penalties happen. Deshaun Jackson, the former Eagle, killed him again, second time this year. He's up over 100 yards, had 4 catches for 126. Alfred Morris paced the Redskins on the ground, 21 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. And so I think, again, that was a much needed feel-good win for the Washington Redskins. Head coach Jay Gruden had been under a lot of fire and duress. We already know that Robert Griffith III, the quarterback there, had struggled all year, had injuries and things of that nature happening. And so I think Chip Kelly, Philadelphia Eagles, going to have a long off season without question. They need to get that secondary tightened up if they have any hopes of really becoming a powerhouse in the NFC. The other game that took place on Saturday was the San Diego Chargers, who improved to 9-6, knocking off the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers came into this game already out of the playoffs. This was really the tale of two halves. The 49ers got off to a huge start, got up to a huge lead, I should say. They were up in this game 28-7 at halftime, but Phillip Rivers was able to come out of the locker room, continue to fire away. And you look at San Diego winning the second half 31-7 over San Francisco. And so I think in the NFL, it's certainly a situation where you can never turn the TV off, never just say this game is over, because we see this happen quite a bit. In this game, Phillip Rivers, 356 passing yards, 4 TDs, 3 interceptions. We know that the guy's a warrior. He just continues to fire away. San Diego still struggled to run the football, only 24 carries for 98 yards. But Antonio Gates, 2 huge TDs. And again, you give this San Diego Chargers team a lot of credit for having heart and stepping up. The Chargers were in a similar situation last year where they end up getting a playoff spot with a victory and a Kansas City loss to be able to get in. They're going to face the Chiefs this week with an opportunity with the win to punch their ticket into the playoffs. When you look at this 49ers team, I think this loss really just kind of rounds up what type of season it's been. Again, you're at home, you're up 21 points. You come out the second half, you only can find 1 touchdown. San Francisco did a great job running the football. 40 rushing attempts, 355 yards. That's a franchise record, 3 TDs. Frank Gore had a 52-yard run. He had 158 yards. Colin Kaepernick had a 90-yard TD run. You never hear a quarterback doing something like that. But again, San Francisco's inability to pass the football is what came back to haunt them. You're looking at Colin Kaepernick completing 15 passes for only 114 yards. I mean, that's like what, maybe 5 yards per completion or something. I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic. And they can't convert third downs. Just was unable to hold on to the lead. Keep playing this one. Quentin Patton had a fumble in overtime, which essentially gave San Diego great field position. At that point, San Diego was able to move the football enough to get a field goal to pull that victory out. And so great job by San Diego. As for the 49ers, I certainly think this is going to be a completely different team as far as the personnel. Obviously, the coaching situation with Jim Harbaugh gone, it's going to be a completely different 49ers team we see on the field next week. Moving on to our next game, this was one of the more exciting games of the day. No one seen this coming. It was the Miami Dolphins improving to 8-7 over the Minnesota Vikings, who are now 6-9. Miami winning this game 37-35. Needed to block a punt that went out of the end zone, resulted in the safety to give Miami a 2-point edge. Able to hold on to that play happened with 45 seconds left in that game. Going into the fourth quarter's game, Minnesota was up 17-14, and then both of these offenses just took off, with Miami outscoring Minnesota 23-18 in the fourth quarter. In this game, we've seen rookie Teddy Bridgewater continue to make improvements. I thought this was a bad matchup for him, but he held his own. 259 passing yards, 2 TDs and an interception. How about Ryan Tannehill, ladies and gentlemen? 396 yards, 4 TDs and interception. He certainly has played well and put up stats at the most inopportune time. Very inconsistent as well. You don't know what Ryan Tannehill is going to do on a week in and week out basis. Lamar Miller paced the Dolphins on the ground with 92 rushing yards and a TD through the air. Charles Clay decided to wake up this week, 6 catches, 114 yards. Mike Wallace, 58 yards, 2 more TDs. For Minnesota, running back Matt Asiata had 58 rushing yards, 2 TDs. Through the air, nobody really did a ton of damage for Minnesota. Teddy Bridgewater did a good job at spreading the football out. But again, it was that block punt with 45 seconds left to give Miami Dolphins the victory. Their playoff hopes are shot as well. Moving on to our next game, we've seen the Baltimore Ravens fall at Houston 25-13. Houston improved to 8-7. I think this is a team that with a better quarterback, they definitely will be in the playoffs this year because J.J. Watt continues to be one of the best players in the NFL. Certainly being on the defensive side of the football, it's rare that you see a guy just really be able to take over and dominate games in the fashion that he did. For Baltimore, losing this game now, they are no longer in control of their own destiny. They need to win next week. As well as have some teams in front of them lose. And the problem again, you hear me say this week in and week out on the show, Baltimore only able to convert on 4 out of 15 third down opportunities. Also, Joe Flacco, just inconsistent. I don't know what it is about the guy, but he has not been able to play consistent football throughout the course of this season, really any season in his career. He's just up and down. The year that the Ravens went to the Super Bowl and run it with him, he certainly got hot in the playoffs, but Joe Flacco, certainly a disappointment as far as just not being able to turn the football over. 3 more interceptions, and you go on the road, you're in control of your own playoff spot, and you just flat out drop it. Again, Flacco, 3 interceptions. The big problem was Baltimore not able to run the football. 16 rushing attempts for 33 yards. Not going to get it done. Those 3 turnovers, obviously, they hurt. Baltimore's offense, only 211 total yards. You look at Houston. Again, they got a guy coming off the street. Last week, Case Keenum was on the practice squad. He wasn't even on the roster for the St. Louis Rams because Houston, all of their 3 quarterbacks on their depth chart, on their roster, hurt, not able to play. They go out and bring Keenum in. Doesn't have the best game, but he only had 1 turnover, and that's the key in this one. Also, Houston able to run the football more effectively. 38 rushes, 123 yards. Obviously, that led by Arian Foster at 96 yards and a passing touchdown. J.J. Watt, though, that was really a guy who exuded his dominance again. 8 tackles, a sack, 4 tackles for a loss, another 4 QB pressures. Just continues to play at an elite level. I don't think there's any question that he is the defensive player of the year in the NFL. Next, we've seen the Detroit Lions barely edge out the Chicago Bears 20-14. That win now has Detroit 11-4. They just need one more victory to win the NFC North Division, have a first round bye, and have home field advantage in the second round, or I should say the conference games for the NFC. The Chicago Bears now 5-10. Again, this was the last game at Soldier Field, so I'm quite sure there was some pride factored in. But this is a game that should have not been close at all. It was Matthew Stafford once again just putting this team in jeopardy. I will say this: if it was not for the Lions' top-ranked defense, if it was not for head coach Jim Caldwell coming over there and really making that team persevere a lot more. He has his team outside of Stafford not making the key mistakes they've made in past years. If it wasn't for that, Matthew Stafford certainly would have this Lions team, instead of being 11-4, more and likely at 10-6 or 9-7, scrambling, trying to get in the playoffs. I just don't understand it. This guy has a lot of talent. You have Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate at receiver, but when you look behind the numbers, those are really the only 2 guys that he targeted in the passing game. He's got other weapons there. Who's Detroit's 3rd receiver, their 4th receiver? Where is the utilization of the tight end position? I think with him so focused on Golden Tate and Calvin Johnson, defenses are aware of that as too. And so Stafford, 243 yards, couldn't even find a TD reception, had 2 horrible interceptions that ultimately allowed for Chicago to linger around and let Jimmy Clausen, a guy who had not started in the NFL since 2010, I don't think he had been on the football field since like 2012, even he could come in and have 181 passing yards, 2 TDs. He did have an interception, but my point being, he outplayed Matthew Stafford, and that's just something that's unacceptable for a guy who's got that much firepower on offense. When you look at what Detroit was able to do on the ground, couple rushing touchdowns, one by Reggie Bush, one by Joique Bell late in the game to give Detroit that victory. Calvin Johnson did have 103 receiving yards in this ball game. When you look over at Chicago, Matt Forte, 95 all-purpose yards and a touchdown, and Alshon Jeffrey, 72 receiving yards and a touchdown. But this victory certainly goes to Jim Caldwell, the running game for Detroit, in their defense, who have certainly put a lot of mascara on and made up for a lot of mistakes made by Matthew Stafford. I can tell you this, if he doesn't play better, I don't care who Detroit plays in the playoffs, they are going to be gone in the first round. This guy is a huge liability to that team right now, to my fantasy football team as well. Next, we've seen the Carolina Panthers edge out the Cleveland Browns 17-13. This game went exactly how we planned, low scoring. Both these teams offensively really haven't played well. They just don't have the offensive firepower, but it was Carolina getting a much needed victory. They're now 6-8-1. They have a chance to win the NFC South Division. Huge showdown next week in Atlanta against the Falcons. Cleveland 7-8. Their playoff hopes were done before this game even started. When you look behind the numbers, this was certainly about Carolina's ability to be more efficient. You have Cleveland only converting 3 out of 12 third downs, compared of 9-16 for Carolina. Cleveland only able to get 84 rushing yards. Carolina dominated in that area, 45 carries, 209 yards. Those two stats led to 17 extra minutes of time of possession for the Carolina Panthers. But again, only able to win that game by 4 points. I think that should tell you how bad they are on offense. Cam Newton, 201 passing yards, a touchdown, did rush for 62 yards in another. Jonathan Stewart, solid day on the ground, 122 rush yards, did have a receiving TD. For the Cleveland Browns, not a lot to talk about. Johnny Manziel in his second start, knocked out of the game with a hamstring injury. Jordan Cameron, he popped in this week, had an 81-yard touchdown. In this game, Josh Gordon continues to struggle with the quarterback carousel, 4 catches, 45 yards. Same holds true for Carolina. Kelvin Benjamin, only 5 catches for 47 yards on 12 targets. Greg Olsen, just 1 catch for 22 yards. And so, again, that was a game that everybody pretty much knew was going to be low scoring. And again, it was Cleveland's inability to convert on third downs, their inability to rush the football, which ultimately cost them this ball game. We just spoke about that NFC South showdown that's going to happen this week in Atlanta. You got the Atlanta Falcons getting a huge road victory over their arch nemesis, the New Orleans Saints, 30-14. That win now has Atlanta tied for first place with Carolina, 6-9. Again, these two teams are going to play in Atlanta this week. The winner of that Atlanta-Carolina game is going to win that division and host a first-round playoff game. You look at the numbers here, and there's no question why Atlanta was able to win this game. You have the New Orleans Saints at home, 5th straight loss. This team, 4 turnovers yesterday by the New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of the football, not able to get one single sack on quarterback Matt Ryan. You look at the Falcons, and I told you about the Philadelphia Eagles' mistakes on the road. 2 turnovers, missing field goals, 13 penalties. The Atlanta Falcons, the exact opposite. Matt Bryant connected on all 4 of his field goals. The Atlanta Falcons did not have a single turnover. Matt Ryan, 322 yards and a touchdown. Not a lot of penalties. You look at the New Orleans Saints, and man, I tell you, this is a team that is going to have a long off season. Drew Brees continues to be a turnover machine. Had a costly interception in that game when New Orleans was only down by 6 points with about 8 minutes left in that ball game. Basically threw a telegraph pass to the wrong receiver, mind you. And that was it. Atlanta able to kick a field goal to go up 23-14 at that point. Just not enough time left, as New Orleans had no choice but to throw the football. in that game. I think you look at too for the New Orleans Saints, and they changed their philosophy. If you recall, with the New Orleans Saints, while Pierre Thomas and Kyrie Robinson were out, they were going more of a rushing attack with Mark Ingram. It helped New Orleans defense stay fresher. It helped to keep defenses honest. It set up play action for Drew Brees. Ever since the Pierre Thomas and Kyrie Robinson have come back, the New Orleans Saints have wanted to go back to their old ways passing the football. You look at this, Mark Ingram yesterday, only 13 rushing attempts. Not feeding the guy the football. Drew Brees, on the other hand, he's passing for 50 times again, and we told you it's inevitable that he's going to have some turnovers when that's the case. I think the biggest play, without question, that came in this game, this was a play that Jimmy Graham caught the football at the goal line. Atlanta Falcon defender, very scrappy, did a great job of ripping the football away, which ended up being a fumble. That could have cut the lead to 20-14 starting off the fourth quarter, would have gave the Saints a bunch of momentum, and that was pretty much the turning point in that ball game. This had already come after that, that was prior to that interception by Brees. If you look at the Atlanta Falcons, Julio Jones, great job back in his first game after missing last week with the hip injury, 7 catches, 107 yards. Also, rookie running back Devontae Freeman had a nice 31-yard TD run to put Atlanta up 20-7 in the third quarter. From there, Falcons never looked back. The Saints officially out of the playoffs. Horrible job by the entire organization this year. An absolute disgrace. We're going to run to another quick break. When we come back, we'll finish recapping our Week 16 games from around the NFL. So don't go anywhere. It's the NFL Exporter live on the Derek Shapiro Show. You are listening to The Final Wrap. All right, everyone, welcome back to the final wrap with the NFL Exporter live on the Derek Shapiro Show. Don't forget to follow Derek Shapiro on Twitter at Derek Shapiro Show. The spelling for that is Derek Shapiro, and show is SHO. Also, make sure to send a friend request over to Derek on Facebook.com/Derek Shapiro. You will see a picture of Derek along with former Fugees member Wyclef John. Let's go ahead, hop back into our Week 16 matchups to see what happened around the NFL. You have the Green Bay Packers taking care of business, knocking off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-3. This game went pretty much as anticipated, with the exception of Green Bay's offense not putting up as many points as we anticipated. When you look at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, really has struggled all year long. You're looking at Tampa Bay throughout the course of the football game, only able to pick up 6 first downs. For crying out loud, there's 4 quarters in the game. They can only pick up 6 first downs. You're looking at Tampa Bay only converting 4 out of 14 third down conversions. Tampa Bay also did a horrible job running the football, just 16 yards. Josh McCown, 147 passing yards and interception. Those things led to Green Bay dominating the time of possession with plus 17. Aaron Rodgers, 318 yards, a touchdown pass, that being a Jordy Nelson. That tandem at wide receiver really did the job for Aaron Rodgers. Jordy Nelson along with Randall Cobb combined for 20 catches, 244 yards, and a touchdown. Eddie Lacy paced the Green Bay Packers on the ground, 99 rushing yards and a touchdown. That win for Green Bay has them now at 11-4. Tampa Bay 2-13. Green Bay hosting the Detroit Lions. NFC North title on the line in that game, along with a first round bye potentially and home field advantage in the playoffs, at least for one round, depending on how that one shakes out. There are a couple other teams ahead of Green Bay as well as Detroit. This certainly will factor in to that happening, but that is a huge game between Green Bay and Detroit Sunday, Lambeau Field. Certainly is going to be a good one. Detroit won that first matchup between those two teams earlier in the year. Next, we had Pittsburgh improving to 10-5, clinching a playoff spot, knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now 8-7. They need to win their last game of the season, along with an awful lot of help in front of them to possibly get in. I think this was another game that went pretty much how we expected, with the exception of running back Jamal Charles. Only 9 carries for 29 yards, suffered a fumble. He just hasn't played well the last couple weeks. And as we told you, if he doesn't play well, Kansas City Chiefs, they flat out don't win ball games. Alex Smith did have 311 passing yards, but not enough. Did not throw a single TD pass. We know he doesn't turn the football over, but too low budget. You know, Kansas City moved the football constantly into Pittsburgh territory, but just never able to see the end zone, which led to 4 field goals by Kansas City's kicker Santos. On the other hand, Pittsburgh not that much better, but it was enough. Antonio Brown was able to catch a late touchdown to seal the deal for the Steelers. He had 7 catches for 72 yards on the day. Also, running back Le'Veon Bell had a tough day at the office, but churned out 63 rushing yards on 20 attempts. Had a short rushing touchdown as well. I think the big key in this game also, you have the Kansas City Chiefs only converting 6 out of 14 third down opportunities, and then Pittsburgh's defense stepped up with 6 sacks, while the Kansas City Chiefs defense has struggled mightily here down the stretch, only able to get 1 sack on quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, huge matchup next week. They are going to be hosting the Cincinnati Bengals for that NFC North division title. So that is going to be a huge and big game there. Next, New England Patriots struggle with the New York Jets. I don't understand for what reason why, when these two teams have played this year. These are games that the Jets could have easily, I don't say easily, the Jets could have won both of these games. And I guess I'm saying easily because it was missed field goals in both of those games that end up costing the New York Jets. New England not very sharp, and again, I don't understand it. You know, that's one thing with the NFL. This is certainly a week-to-week business, a game-to-game business. Coming into this game, we all had New England winning this one huge, and there's really no reason why they didn't. I understand that it's a division rival who understands what you want to do. I understand that the Jets played with some pride, but these two teams are far apart in the amount of talent that they have. I guess maybe it's just a matchup-based business, like I said, because the Jets could have beat New England in New England early this year, ended up having a field goal blocked as time expired in that one. Jets lost that game by 2 points. Here the Jets lose this game by 1 point. And the key play that happened in this game, which was pretty much even down the middle, the Jets down by 1 point, well within field goal range. I think it would have been about a 40-yarder for kicker Nick Folk. Geno Smith, the quarterback, takes a huge sack to push the kick from, instead of being 40 yards, pushes that into a 52-yard field goal attempt for Nick Folk. The Patriots got a piece of it. Ball never came close to the crossbar, and that essentially sealed the deal for the Jets' fate. Geno Smith actually outplayed Tom Brady, 210 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Brady had 182 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Jets outrushed the Patriots for the second time this year. You did see Rob Gronkowski, only 31 receiving yards, but did have a touchdown in this one for the 3rd straight game. Again, it was a game that was played very close, very even down the middle. Essentially, that sack by Geno Smith pushed the Jets out of a normal field goal range that Nick Folk makes with his eyes closed. And so New England now 12-3. They'll wait to see what happens in the Monday night matchup between Cincinnati and Denver to see if they will get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Right now, if Denver were to win that game, then both Denver and New England have to play next week because they're tied with the same record with the Patriots, holding the head-to-head matchup win in that one. For the Jets, 3-12, miserable year for Rex Ryan. We'd be surprised if we see him back next year. That entire roster needs a complete makeover. Next, we have the New York Giants, the other team in New York. They went out and got a victory on the road over the St. Louis Rams, 37-27. Both of those teams, the Rams and the Giants, now at 6-9. For the Rams, just not playing efficient football, only able to convert on 1 of 6 third down conversions, 3 turnovers for the St. Louis Rams. And when you lose a game by 10 points, that's exactly what happens when you're not able to convert third downs and you're turning the football over. As for the New York Giants, their offense was hitting on all cylinders. 514 total yards for the Giants on the road. Eli Manning damn near perfect, 391 passing yards, 3 TDs. Got the balance on the ground. Rookie Andre Williams, another great game for him. 26 carries, 110 yards. And then you have 2 receivers for the New York Giants. Rookie Odell Beckham continues to be one of the best in the business. 8 catches, 148 yards, 2 TDs. Ruben Randall, 6 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. Just not sure what went wrong for the Rams defense here. Maybe it was the 10-day layoff. I don't know what it is, but the Rams defense certainly have been one of the better units over the last month or so. Really since week 9, I guess they're human. It was time for a bad game for them. When you look at the Rams, Sean Hill, 210 yards, 2 TDs, an interception. Trey Mason did have 76 rushing yards. That was just on 13 attempts. I think if it weren't for the turnovers, if it weren't for the lack of not being able to convert third downs, you're figuring Trey Mason gets some more carries, certainly can control the clock a little more. I think the biggest surprise here for the Rams, only 1 sack. This is the second straight week where they were only able to get 1 sack when that defense was hitting on all cylinders, certainly able to get a lot more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Next, we had the Oakland Raiders. This was probably one of our biggest surprises of the day, but it goes to show just how the NFL is. The Raiders able to get their 3rd win of the season. They're now 3-12. They eliminated the Buffalo Bills from playoff contention, 26-24. The Bills now 8-7. And again, you look inside the numbers, you got Buffalo only able to convert 4 out of 15 third down conversions. Buffalo only able to run the football for 13 yards. Buffalo also with 2 turnovers. I think by now we have firmly established that if you cannot convert on third down, if you're going to turn the football over, if you cannot run the football, you're not going to win games. It's something that is so funny how week in and week out when we recap these games, those are the numbers that we see for losing teams. If you look at Oakland on the other hand, rookie Derek Carr, 214 passing yards, 2 TDs, 0 interceptions. The Oakland Raiders as a whole, 0 turnovers. Oakland able to run the football 36 times for 140 yards. 2-point win for Oakland. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your ball game. Kyle Orton for the Buffalo Bills did have 312 passing yards. 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. But again, Buffalo's inability to run the football has been an Achilles heel all year. I'm quite sure in the offseason, getting better offensive linemen, finding a running back, maybe with some more explosion. I don't know if they plan on having CJ Spiller back. I know Fred Jackson's an older veteran who still is effective in between the tackles, but Buffalo Bills got to find a way to get that offense better. Bills defense also, again, these are trap games late in the season, traveling way across the country in the time zone, probably relax. These guys feeling themselves a little too much after shutting Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers down in back-to-back week. But it's amazing to me. I thought that the Buffalo Bills would bring a lot more pressure, only able to get 1 sack on rookie quarterback Derek Carr. And so great game by the Oakland Raiders. Buffalo Bills going to have a lot to think about in the offseason on a year that really was wasted. You figure one more victory for the Bills, including this win this week, they're right there for a shot at the playoffs. But obviously, as we can see by this loss, a team that's really not playing well enough to get in. This was a shocker here. I don't think not too many people may have been surprised to see Dallas win the ball game, but the fashion in which they did it was certainly a huge surprise. Dominated the Indianapolis Colts from the opening whistle. Even though star running back DeMarco Murray played in this game for Dallas, had 22 carries, 59 yards, a touchdown. That he had surgery on his hand for a couple broken bones. They really didn't even need him in this one. I think they just wanted to play him just to see how the hand would feel, make sure that he's staying active. He is also trying to break the franchise rushing record, and this was a game that Dallas needed, but not for long. This one was all about Dallas. You got Tony Romo, absolutely perfect, 218 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, spread the wealth around, 2 TD passes to Terrence Williams, 1 to Dez Bryant, 1 to Cole Beasley. The other one got sent to Terrence Williams. Dallas also 40 carries for 127 yards on the ground. When you looked at the Indianapolis Colts, just never were in this ball game. Indianapolis only 10 rushing attempts for 1 pathetic yard in an NFL game. Absolutely unacceptable. You also have Andrew Luck, one of the games that he wants to forget about. 109 passing yards, 2 interceptions. Dallas got out to a 21 zip lead, and that was it. Dallas went into halftime 28-0, and just not able, Indianapolis, to get anything going in this one. This was a 35-0 ball game going into the fourth quarter. Colts did already have a playoff spot sold up, so I think this is one they'll just look to put behind them, try to improve and get a win the last week of the season, as they're going to host a wild card game in the first week of the playoffs. Dallas, meanwhile, clinched their division at 11-4. Have been a long time coming for the Cowboys. They'll look to compete for a home field advantage and a first round bye next week, as they're going on the road to play the Washington Redskins, a team that they definitely owe one. And then in our Sunday night matchup, we had the Seattle Seahawks completely dominate the Arizona Cardinals, exactly how we knew that they would. I would say in a week in fantasy football as well as NFL football, where things did not go according to plan. We had some upsets. We had a lot of things just happening that weren't anticipated. This one went exactly as planned. Seattle rolls Arizona 35-6 out in the desert. Seahawks defense dominated again, only allowing offenses over the last 5 games only 6 points per contest. If you can't score, you can't win. This one was all about Seattle. Russell Wilson, as we mentioned, their star quarterback, 330 passing yards, 2 TDs, also ran for 88 yards and a touchdown. I think he certainly should be in the talks for the MVP race this year. I'm quite sure Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or one of those guys, they always want to give it to the quarterbacks. But Russell Wilson being a quarterback himself, I think if Seattle finishes 12-4, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, you look at the numbers that he's put up this year, almost rushing for 1,000 yards. There's no question this guy should be in the MVP discussion. Marshawn Lynch had a 79-yard beast mode rumble to help him get 110 yards and 2 TDs on the day. Luke Wilson, the tight end for Seattle, we talked about him earlier in the show, was the top tight end in fantasy football this week. And also wide receiver Doug Baldwin, he had over 100 receiving yards as well. When you look at the Arizona Cardinals, the things that certainly stand out, only converting on 3 of 13 third down conversion opportunities, only able to run for 29 yards. I think we all get the point by now that if you cannot run the football, can't convert on third downs, you are not going to win games in the NFL. And to wrap things up on Monday Night Football, we had the Cincinnati Bengals knock off the Denver Broncos 37-28. I tell you, this game ended a crazy week 16 of football, where everything that was anticipated would happen, with the exception of a few football games. It just did not work out that way. I don't know who had Cincinnati beating the Denver Broncos, but the Cincinnati wins this one 37-28 with that win. The Bengals now are in the playoffs yet again. 10-4-1 is their record. Denver now 11-4. I am quite sure they are going to be resting their starters next week. They already have a first round bye that is going to be wrapped up. As a matter of fact, I apologize. Denver will have to play next week because they lost to Cincinnati. If Denver loses, then Cincinnati wins. Cincinnati would get the first round bye and have home field in that first matchup. So Denver certainly has their work cut out for them playing next week. In this ball game, what you seen was the running attack of the Cincinnati Bengals on display yet again, led by phenom rookie running back Jeremy Hill. Had a 85-yard touchdown run to really get things started for the Bengals right after Andy Dalton threw a pick 6 to start the game off. After that, it just seemed like the crowd was really into it, really energized the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati on the night, 37 carries, 207 rushing yards. We've seen them do this time after time after time, especially when they can get third down stops. When you're looking at the Denver Broncos, only 85 yards running. CJ Anderson was pretty effective on the ground. 18 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. But ultimately, it was Peyton Manning who did throw for 311 yards and 2 TDs, but he also had 4 interceptions, the last one taken back for a pick six to really seal the deal on this ball game, and that's a shock. I don't know when you ever would expect Peyton Manning to have 4 interceptions in a football game, but it happened tonight. You know that he's unhappy about that. When you look at Andy Dalton, quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, he had 146 passing yards, 2 TDs to go along with that interception. In the air for the Cincinnati Bengals, their lead guy tonight was actually tight end Jermaine Gresham with 9 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. AJ Green held without a catch all game long, also injured his arm. We certainly hope that he's healthy and going to be able to help out Cincinnati in the postseason where they're going to need him most. When you look at the Denver Broncos, Demaryius Thomas, 7 catches, 115 yards. Emmanuel Sanders had 5 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns to go along with that. But ultimately, this was a football game where Cincinnati really hurt Denver rushing the football as well as in the screen game. Those 4 interceptions by Peyton Manning, obviously the difference in this one as well. Just like the theme has been all show, for teams who can run the football effectively and win the turnover battle certainly increases your chance of winning. When we take it over to the fantasy football side of things, Peyton Manning, you can add him to the top list of quarterbacks who has failed you miserably the last 2 weeks. Manning, along with Matt Stafford and Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Luck, those elite quarterbacks not showing up this week. Peyton Manning only good for 12 points. He was certainly on the list of duds. When you look at the running back position, certainly C.J. Anderson, 138 all-purpose yards and a touchdown for the Bengals. Jeremy Hill, 147 rushing yards and a TD for Cincinnati. Both of those guys, without question, ranked in the top 10 for fantasy football at the running back position this week. At the wide receiver position, Emmanuel Sanders, his 70 yards and 2 TDs certainly put him in there, actually in second place behind ODB. And then Jermaine Gresham, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals, his 62 receiving yards and a touchdown got him on the top 10 for the tight ends, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals defense, 14 big points tonight. That is currently, that ends the week ranked 3rd amongst all your fantasy football defenses out there. I don't know anybody who had the Bengals defense in playing against Peyton Manning and company, but they certainly chipped in with a huge game this week. Just goes to show how unpredictable things are in the NFL. Real quick, before we get out of here, I have a caller calling in. Let's hit the phone lines and see who we have with us this evening. Derek Shapiro, thank you for joining the show today. How's everything going?
Oh, great. You know, getting ready for the holidays, of course. I wish you a Merry Christmas, by the way. And Happy Hanukkah and Happy New Year.
All right, great. Thanks so much. You got all your bases covered there. And so it's been quite some time since we talked to you. Actually, the last time we talked to you was a couple months ago when you released your horror flick that came out. First of all, tell us how did that project go? Did it come out successful how you originally anticipated and wanted it to be?
Yeah, it's coming out great. I mean, that came out great. Horror Night. I mean, people saw me as a killer, a Rottweiler, and then one other killer who played by James Buddy Love Herring. You know, he transitioned himself to be a pastor in the holidays of the mall, and you did a great job in the Horror Night film too, which can still be seen on the movie internet channel .yolasite.com, or people can simply just put in Horror Night Derek Shapiro on YouTube. You know.
Okay.
But you played yourself in that movie, you know?
Yes, I certainly did. I had a great scene there with a killer being on the loose, so that was definitely a great moment there. Yeah. And so now you're back at it again. You got another project coming out. Why don't you tell?
Now, it's holidays at the mall, and it's just such a good. It's been all since Thanksgiving, and it's just a great holiday time to watch this movie. Even now, at the end of the month, it's a great time to watch the holidays in the mall.
Oh, okay, great. So tell us, you said the movie is actually out now. When did the movie release?
Thanksgiving Day, and it has a football connection in the movie.
Oh, okay. That's great. And can you tell us, give us an idea a little bit exactly what the movie's about?
Well, it's about my character Paul, and the one who played the killer in Horror Night, James Buddy Love Herring, plays the pastor, Pastor Harris. And I'm shopping in the mall, and my character separates from his wife for that day, Tracy. Well, it doesn't separate, but they go on their own, and I'm just shopping in the mall, running into different people. And I ran into a New England Patriot cheerleader, Kelly Bennion, in the movie too. And she's a really a Patriot cheerleader. You can look her up, Kelly Bennion, and she makes a cameo in the movie as well.
Oh, okay, that sounds great. And is this a family type movie that the whole family can sit in and watch?
Yes, no swears. You can type Holidays at the Mall on YouTube, or you just go on the movie internet channel yolasite.com, and you just put in holiday. You see Holidays at the Mall. You just click that, and people are loving it. People love to see Kelly Bennion. She's awesome. Vinny Bucci is in it, and many other great people. My parents are in it. They play the Rob Ryan Cantor, and of course James Buddy Love Herring plays the pastor. So it's a great movie for everybody, and a lot of the New England Patriot cheerleaders and the football players love the movie.
Oh man, that sounds great. And man, you really been stepping it up lately as far as these movie features and things like that. Are you doing any? Are you doing any?
I'm sorry, I'm in a parking lot over here.
Oh, that's okay. We totally.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. We totally understand that. I said, are there any producing or directing in your future, or are you kind of right now just kind of going down the path of getting your feet wet, doing some acting?
No. In my films, I totally direct it, executive producer, and act in it. But I'm in my other friends' films too, Jason J. Tavares, and I just act in his films. But my films, I totally direct it, executive produce it, and write it and act in it. But all the other actors, this is improv. They're all co-writers. Even you were a co-writer on my last film. You know what I'm saying? Because you did your own improv. So all the actors are co-writers.
Okay, that sounds great. And Derek, why don't you let everybody know I don't know if the movie itself has a website, if the movie itself has a Facebook page, but let people know how they might be able to go and see the movie. I know you mentioned YouTube, so please leave with us, the Facebook page, anywhere they can watch trailers, official movie website.
The internet channel, yolasite.com is where you can find all my movies, and my friends' movies that I'm featured in. And or just go on YouTube.com and put in Holidays at the Mall, and you will see me playing Paul in the movie, And I'll tell you this much, I have 2 other movies coming out between this year and next year with me playing Paul in it. I have a summer movie coming out, and Holidays at the Mall Part 2, which I'm just featuring, wrapping up. That'll be out next year. But Holidays at the Mall going strong this year, and as of January 1st, I'm gonna put a wrap on just to advertise at Holidays at the Mall, because the holiday season will be over by January 1st. So I'm gonna put a Holidays at the Mall to rest, but people can still watch it anytime they want. But I'm just dying down with the advertisement for Holidays at the Mall as January 1st. It's great, and it's just a great project. I'm just very proud about it.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, before we get out of here, Derek, we certainly appreciate you for coming on the show. Any last words for your viewers and listeners and audience out there?
Well, thank you. And also, you could go right now, the same network that you carry, the Final Wrap on DerekShapiroShow.com, by the way, too, one of the other stations that you're on. You can catch my Best of show with Dan Aykroyd on there. And Jennifer Lopez, and Carl Thomas, and Chubby Tavares, and Harry Conner Jr. on DerekShapiroShow.com, and it's on the video archive section, and you could just go on to December 2014, or you can go on the episodes, click episodes, and you will see the Best of show for 2014 on there with many celebrities such as Dan Aykroyd and Jennifer Lopez.
Okay, that sounds great, Derek. Well, we certainly wish that the movie continues to do well. We wish you the best of luck, and certainly return that happy holiday to you as well. And make sure you come back and join the show sometime soon, and we will certainly show you the love and support that you need by going and check the movie out, whether it's on YouTube or through that website that you told us. And we are certainly going to be looking forward to the projects that you have upcoming in the future. So thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, that was great stuff there by Derek Shapiro, the man himself. Make sure you go on YouTube and check out his new movie. I'm quite sure it's going to be great. I'm going to do that myself as soon as I wrap the show up, which is right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all of my weekly listeners and viewers for tuning in to the Final Wrap each and every week. We've got one more week of football left, and so make sure you join me 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Tuesday for another great show. Certainly wish everybody the best of luck to you. For those who have one more game left in fantasy football, should be a very interesting week of football around the NFL. A lot of playoff spots are already sold up now. Teams jockeying for position, trying to get home field advantage and things of that nature. So I'm quite sure it's going to be very entertaining. And then we're going to be off to the playoffs where, like you see in fantasy football, anything can happen. It's just all about getting into the big dance. For the Derek Shapiro Show, the Final Wrap, I am the NFL Exporter signing out 1100.